I made you guess what we were building. Some of you guessed a greenhouse and you were right. And that is what we were going to do today, is start laying down the foundation for our greenhouse. And we're going to show you how to lay or set up forms and then lay the concrete within. We're a bunch of amateurs laying concrete, but we're going to show you that anyone can do this. There may be some imperfections, but the cost savings are worth it. Now, before laying any forms or concrete, we need a rough idea of where we are going to place our footing, and some site prep is needed as well. The footing happens to be for our greenhouse, so we're going to be picking a nice sunny location on the south side of this garage. Now, the next thing that's needed is a nice solid base with some good drainage. And this is especially important for any areas that experience harsh winters, causing ground moisture to freeze, leading to expansion and heaving. Now, to prepare our subgrade, we're using a rotary laser level to keep our site flat, level, and set to grade. You can also use a string line or a line level, but it's a bit more tedious, time-consuming, and not very accurate at all. However, rotary lasers tend to be pricey. I settled for a middle-of-the-road rotary laser level years ago. I've used it numerous times for several projects, and it's more than paid for itself in my eyes. Now that the subgrade is set, we're placing a geotextile down that will allow for water drainage and keep any weeds from invading the area of the footing in the future. On top of that, we're adding 8 inches of 3/4 stone. Now, we're using what we happen to have laying around in the yard, and it happens to be a pile of mixed aggregate that has 3/4 stone in it. And that's what we're using for our base, so there's a lot of fine material in there, which is going to cause a little bit of settling. A better option would be 3/4 clear stone, as this media does not require any compaction and doesn't settle. But for our scenario, we're laying our base course on a flat surface of virgin ground, so there should be very minimal settling anyways. Now, once your base is established, it's time to set up your forms. Now, whether you're pouring a footing or a slab, this process is going to be the same. We want our footing to be 5.5 inches thick, so we're using 2x6s to construct our forms. In most cases, you're going to be looking for nice square corners when setting up your forms. There are several ways you can go about doing this, but the quickest, most accurate way is to use a little bit of simple math. Trust me, it never hurt anybody. I was never a huge fan of math, but it is so easy. You're going to be using the Pythagorean theorem. It's easier to use than it is to spell, I promise. All right, y'all, so this is Pythagorean's theorem. It is so super easy and simple. It's not overcomplicating anything. It actually makes your life a whole lot easier when you want to know the angular dimension of a square that you're trying to measure. You're going to see me use the answer from this calculation to measure the distance from this outside corner to this outside corner of our inside form to indicate that it is square. Now, as you can see on the left-hand side here, we have this right triangle with leg A and leg B. And then we have this long diagonal line here that is called our hypotenuse, and that is labeled C. Now, Pythagorean's theorem says that in order to calculate the value for C, we need to take A squared plus B squared, and that will equal C squared. All right, now we already have the outside dimensions of our inside form here, so we're just simply going to plug these numbers in. So we have the long side is 10 feet 8 inches, and I'm turning in this into a decimal form. It just makes the calculation easier. Then on the bottom leg, we have 8 feet 8 inches. Now when we square both of those values and then add them together, we come up with 188.890 squared. In order to get it back to just a regular old C value and not the squared, we have to take the square root of this value. Now the square root of that number comes out to 13.7437, or 13 feet 8 and 15/16 inches. There you go. That's as simple as that. That's the answer, 13 feet, 8 and 15/16 inches. If you don't want to be so technical about it, you could probably just go 13 feet 9 inches and you're going to be very close. So that is going to be the length of my long diagonal line that we're going to measure. So when we measure from outside corner to outside corner, we should be at roughly 13 feet 9 inches. So, and measure that from corner to corner, and you'll know that your frame is completely square. Once your forms are set and level, it's not a bad idea to lay out some rebar just to add a little bit of extra strength to your concrete. This will also help if you are prone to a lot of expansion and contraction due to extreme temperature changes and frost. And don't forget to pick up some of these little rebar chairs. These little things help keep your rebar suspended during the pour, which makes the process much easier. Now our forms are set and our rebar is almost all in place. All that's left to do is mix and pour. But how much concrete do you need? There's a fairly simple formula for that too. Now let's figure out out that answer for how much concrete we need. Now the magic formula for this is your length in feet and multiply it by the width in feet, multiplied by the depth in inches. That answer is going to be divided by 324. All right, let's get this done. So we have our length here, 12 feet, multiplied by our width, 8 inches. Again, that has to be in feet, so we're going to convert that to the decimal form in feet, multiplied by our depth in inches, 5.5, and that is going to give us an answer of 44.0022. All right, now we have two sides that need to be filled just like this, so you can take this answer here and multiply it by 2, and you're going to get 4400.88. All right, let's calculate the short ends quick. Again, we are going to take 10 feet multiplied by 8 inches converted to feet, multiplied by our depth in inches of 5.5. And we are going to come up with 36.6685. Now again, we're going to double this number. So you just take that times 2, and we're going to get 0.73337. All right, now that we've got both of those values calculated for both sides, top and bottom, we are going to add those two values together. So now we have 88.0044 from the previous answer, and we're going to add 73.3370, and we're going to get 4,143,116. All right, so we have 161.3414. Now dividing this answer by 324 converts this into cubic yards, which gives us a meaningful measurement, and that rounded off to 3 places comes out to 498 yards cubed. Basically a half a cubic yard of concrete is what we need. Now you go to your local home improvement store, they sell their bags by cubic feet. Well, that's fun, so we just convert that into cubic feet by multiplying that number by 27, and we come up with 13.45 cubic feet. Now, each bag that we purchased makes a half cubic foot of concrete, so we divide this number by 0.5, and we come up with 26.9. All right, so we need 26.9 bags of concrete. Obviously, we can't have 26.9, so we're just going to say we need 27 bags. And you're always going to want to add a couple more to that number because that's an exact number. You're going to have spillage. You're going to need to be able to make sure your forms are completely full. I'd recommend you add another 3 to 5 bags to that. So you're going to want anywhere between 30 and 32 bags. This will get you very close. Whatever you don't use, take back to the store. This formula works for mulch, topsoil, gravel, concrete, or any other material that you need to fill a specific space with. I do recommend that you either write it down, remember it, or save this video so you can come back to watch it again when you need it. And why, you may ask? Well, because I already calculated that we would need about 30 bags before going to our local home improvement store. I had the materials assistant calculate it just to make sure we were on the same page. The individual put one number in the wrong place of his in-store calculator and figured that we would need 294 bags to pour a footing 10 feet by 12 feet, 8 inches wide by 5.5 inches deep. You gotta be kidding me. The cost was going to be about $1,200 for just the pre-mixed bags of cement, not including the shipping. We didn't believe that, but he insisted on showing us his screen to prove that what he was saying was correct. We eventually made him start over and we figured out where he went wrong. And before you start pouring your concrete, you're gonna wanna make sure you put down some sort of a release agent. We're just using diesel fuel. It's got an oily base to it. That should help. We forgot over on this side. We were getting too far ahead of ourselves too quickly. But you want to spray a release agent on your boards, otherwise you have the risk of the concrete sticking to your forms and chipping when you start pulling the forms off.
Okay, ready to load.
Once you start, you're going to want to keep moving at a fairly steady pace to have enough time to use a screed to work your concrete through your forms and level it once you have it full to the top. Now this mixer's maximum capacity is about 1.5 cubic feet, and we're filling roughly a half cubic yard of space. So it's going to take us a little while. Use your leveled forms as a guide for your screed to create a nice uniform level pour. Make sure you go ahead and hit your forms gently with a hammer to help settle that concrete and work out any air bubbles to have a nice solid formed pour. Once your forms are full, you will want to wait for a bit for the concrete to stiffen before floating and edging to give your footing a finished look. You will know if it's too wet to work. It's either going to be super soupy and unworkable, or it will be stiff with little bleed water on top. You can even push your fingers down onto the concrete, and if they only push in just a very little way with a good amount of resistance, it's time to start working that concrete. Now we're just finishing off. Concrete's had a little bit of time to set. It's getting pretty stiff. Don't pull straight up. If you pull straight up, you're going to leave that kind of a finish right there. You want to kind of lift off as you're sweeping. It'll leave a much smoother looking finish. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Concrete is actually pretty forgiving. If you gouge the concrete while you're floating, just float back over it and smooth it out. The more patience you have, the better it's going to look in the end. Once you're all done, you're going to want to let your concrete cure for 24 to 48 hours before removing your forms. When you're removing your forms, remember to pry up from the bottom to slide your forms up and off. Never pry against the concrete and form. Doing that is just risking cracking the edge of your newly poured slab or footing. Who wants that? Your concrete will take about 28 days to fully cure and reach full strength. Now, if you liked this video and found this helpful, stick around as we walk you through building the actual greenhouse. Be sure to come back to kick it into sticks, and we'll see you in the next one.